The thing about Singapore is that it is kind of like a totalitarian dictatorship. You're not allowed to protest, you're not allowed to, do those sorts of things. But people were getting so upset that they were bringing their little Gundam figurines and setting them up in public places in the form of mock protests. And this is in a city where there are no protests, and no one is allowed to protest, and people don't protest, but people were protesting the tactics of it. So this proved to anime companies that suing people was not popular. Another thing was that, does anybody know what a doujinshi is?
Yeah.
Yeah? Anybody not know? Okay, so doujinshi was, for the most part, it hasn't been, people who make doujinshi, they haven't really been sued by the Japanese companies, except for very few cases. They haven't been sued for making them. The Japanese companies tolerated it. So when fansubbing started online, people saw, or the Japanese companies saw fansubbing as a sort of form of
advertising.
Yeah, a form of advertising. So they and they also saw it as kind of like the fan market similar to doujinshi. So they didn't really clamp down on people who are uploading stuff to torrents. And at the same time, as you said before, companies like ADV saw fan subs as a form of advertising and a form of way to measure the market and to see what should be licensed. The title, Azumanga Daioh, which came out a few years ago, that was one of the titles that ADV admitted that they saw how many people were downloading fan subs and they thought this was going to be a big hit. But if you don't know, Azumanga Daioh really wasn't that much of a big hit. Not a lot of people bought the show. And there's another title, Kodacha. It was very popular in the 90s. It was a great show. Everybody loved it. People were saying, oh, look at all these fan subs we're downloading. This is going to be a great show. It's going to be super popular. And so Funimation said, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to take it and we're going to put it on DVD and everybody's going to buy it because everybody loves it so much on the internet. Everybody on the internet loves this show. But nobody bought it. Nobody bought the show because one of the problems with Kodacha is that the band that made a bunch of the music decided they didn't want to be associated with a little kid show like Kodacha. And they said, no, you can't use any of our music. So Funimation had to make their own music to substitute. They had to take out a bunch of the band's music. They couldn't, in the subtitle version, if Sana mentioned the band's name, they actually had to bleep out the name. They couldn't use the band's name.
I have the DVD, but I haven't watched them yet.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. This is one of the sticking points for fans. They saw this as Funimation, the people that licensed Dragon Ball Z, who had ruined Dragon Ball Z, and they saw, oh look, Funimation is ruining Kodacha. They're taking out all this music, they're putting in all this horrible stuff.
So they even changed opening in the ending?
Yeah, they had to. Yeah, I like the thing they changed it with, but they had to. They didn't have a choice. Because this is one of the things with licensing. A company that licenses anime, they have to bend to the will of their Japanese overlords. If the Japanese say, you know what, I want you to spell this character's name this way, even though most people spell it this way, you have to listen to the Japanese because in the end, they still own the anime. They still own, they own the translations, they own the dub, they own everything. The only thing Funimation owns is the rights to distribute it. They don't own any of the other stuff. So this is creating problems because the Japanese weren't realizing fansubbing is starting to eat into the Region 1 market. People aren't buying those DVDs anymore. So does anybody remember something horrible that happened in 2007? Does the name Geneon USA ring a bell? Geneon USA was the company that... Pioneer. Exactly, Pioneer. They were the company that had licensed those uncut Sailor Moon DVDs back in the day. And in 2007, that company collapsed. The company in Japan, the Geneon company, had decided they were going to shut down operations in the United States, and they were going to shut down Geneon. So that was a huge shock to the anime fans. They thought, oh my god, the industry is going to collapse, and why is this happening? And the ultimate answer was because nobody was buying those releases. People were downloading fan subs, and when they came out on DVD, they said, you know what, these DVDs are far too expensive, I'm not going to buy them, or I already have them on my computer, I'm not going to buy them. And And that ultimately led to the collapse of Geneon USA. I mean, it's not the only reason that Geneon collapsed, but it's certainly one of the reasons. So we got 15 minutes left. About that, yeah. So, let's talk a bit about 2017 now. So, does anybody remember what happened to ADV last year?
Yes.
Yes, ADV, they had to sell off all their assets and they made a bunch of new companies, Switchblade Pictures, Section 23. Section 23 is the one that licenses mostly anime. So they had to do that. They had to sell off all their assets, and that's not necessarily because of fansubbing, but it certainly was one of the reasons. People weren't buying ADV titles anymore, and the company they had to sell off all their assets in order to start making money again. But before that, some amazing things had happened. In 2008, ADV put all of Welcome to the NHK on an aggregator site similar to YouTube called Crunchyroll, which at the time was an illegal website and people were just uploading fan subs totally illegally. But, and Gonzo, a Japanese animation company, started putting licensed legal anime on Crunchyroll as well. And in May 2008, Funimation started, after they licensed One Piece, they started showing streams of One Piece 1 week after it aired in Japan. And everybody was super excited about this until somebody hacked into Funimation servers, stole those episodes, and put them on YouTube. And everybody thought, oh my God, you know, the Japanese are they don't trust us anymore. We just broke into Funimation servers and stole their stuff. And for 3 weeks, Funimation could not release any new episodes of One Piece because they were trying to beg with the Japanese, saying, please let us do this. You know, this is just an isolated incident. We'll update our servers, make it more secure. And thank goodness, Japanese said, okay, we'll trust you. We'll do this. We'll keep doing this. And since then, it has been totally hunky-dory. For the past 2 years, Funimation has been doing that sort of thing, uploading the new episodes of One Piece. In 2009, I mentioned Crunchyroll. They were an aggregator site that had fan subs. But in 2009, they took all of their fan subs off, and they started uploading licensed anime with legal translations on their website. And this was starting to mark a change. Japanese companies, earlier on, they were starting to become afraid of the internet, and that was one of the reasons why they weren't putting anime on the internet. In 2009, they'd only been doing it for about a year. But the Japanese, they started to realize they had to adapt to the market, they had to change, and they started putting their stuff online, but not necessarily because they desperately wanted to, but because they didn't really have a choice at this point. Fansubbing was eating far too much into the market. It was taking away value from their releases because people weren't buying it anymore, so those releases weren't worth as much, so they had to put it on the internet. They didn't really have a choice. But in the fall 2009, Crunchyroll started licensing stuff that was just getting released in Japan. They were uploading it the day of the Japanese airings at the same time, and it was really great. And it meant that people were finally having access to the thing they had wanted since the beginning of the 2000s. They had wanted anime right when it came out in Japan. The second it came out with translations and pretty and super quality. So finally, they were starting to respond to the market. And this has been going on since the fall of 2009, yeah?
Crunchyroll now releases their episodes like an hour, half an hour after from the
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And so I mean, it hasn't been a total success for them, but you know, it's still going. People totally bought a majority stake in their company recently. So the Japanese are starting, from what I see, the Japanese are starting to appreciate the online distribution of their animation. Just recently, in 2010, Funimation and Section 23 Films, they had licensed anime before it aired in Japan. And this isn't actually uncommon. Since maybe 2005, ADV and Funimation have been financing anime in Japan. But the problem was that they were financing it as it was being made, but they couldn't get those online streaming rights because the Japanese just were not interested in that. But just recently, the Japanese decided, okay, you know what, okay, you can license High School of the Dead, you can license House of Five Leaves, and you can put it on the internet and you can show it to the whole world. And it'll be legal and it'll be free, except for the advertisement.